Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we are going to be taking a look at how you can beat the Fighting Legend Vegeta event. Well, maybe not how you can beat, but how I will be beating the event, and we will discuss what kind of team builds are optimal, what kind of thresholds Vegeta has, and just generally discuss the Vegeta event in general. And what we can do to prepare for it, what you can utilize for the stage. So there's 7 phases in total. It is apparently on par with the LGE GT event, the Legendary Goku event GT. The 7 phases are Int, Physical, Tech, Strength, Int, Physical, and AGL. Obviously only one Tech phase, only one Strength phase. So generally AGL, Physical, those stages will be fine. Those kind of units will be fine. Strength units, not so much. The final phase can be quite difficult. And yeah, that is pretty much it. There are some missions involved. So those missions are currently for Mastered Evolution, Powerful Comeback, Otherworld Warriors, Worthy Rivals, Siblings Bond, Joined Forces, and Gifted Warriors. For the most part, beating the stage is generally reliant on the ability to raise attack and defense. For the most part, it's not obviously the be all and end all. You do need to have a good level of offense. You need to have a good level of team functionality. You need to have the ability to swap units in and out. But for the most part, it's generally speaking built around the designed idea of having units that raise their defense and stack indefinitely. That's units that raise their attack and defense, greatly raise attack and defense. The thresholds are pretty much on par with the LGE GT. If we look at the first Vegeta, he's immune to stunning, immune to sealing. Every single unit here is immune to stunning and sealing, and they're pretty much immune from all kinds of attack lowering from the second stage. So the event starts off pretty tough from a utility point of view. Like, there's not much you can do to stave off the difficulty of the units. Another great way is to bring damage reduction. That's always a super helpful mechanic, and evasion is also super helpful, but evasion can kind of fall away, especially at the end, because Vegeta prevents units from evading. But for the most part, the beginning is as straightforward as the most recent long form events can be. What you want to do is you want to use this opportunity, especially against probably the first 3 Vegetas, to somewhat bring your rotations into order. You want to keep set rotations as much as possible, because you want to make sure that you have a good level of strength, because it can get quite challenging later on, and you really want to build up those main rotations defenses. Now, if your units suffer from type disadvantage, and especially from around stage 5, 6, and 7, type disadvantage is going to become a very, very predominant factor. And so if your units suffer from type disadvantage, you are going to have to be a bit careful about that. Probably place them off rotation. You will see that I generally keep the exact same rotation throughout the entire battle. That's mainly because the Hybrid Saiyans team, especially the one that I am utilizing, for the most part has quite a strong stacking lineup. We have really, really powerful units in the form of the Hybrid Saiyan Gohan, probably one of the best units for long form events in the game. I mean, one of the best defensive units, if not the best defensive unit in the game. So having 2 of him really does make things a lot easier. We also have the LRAGL Gohan, who with his stats stacks relatively quickly. We also have alongside him the Strength General Pool Banner Trunks, who raises his defense because of the unit super attack that he shares with the LR Gohan, and also provides a 40% buff to the rest of the rotation, which again is pretty helpful overall. So when you factor in the team build that I have, it's a pretty safe team build. I didn't go for speed or for anything, I just went for the guaranteed clear. It was pretty straightforward. and relatively easy. It wasn't something that was, you know, too difficult or anything like that. It was just a very, very straightforward stage for me. I just basically put the units into rotation and I essentially let them just, do their thing. So that does make the stage a lot easier when you have units that you can just kind of leave to do that. Now, not every single event or every single team build will allow you to do that. You sometimes have to go a bit more offensively orientated. You have to go for something alongside the lines of, okay, I might go for more damage rather than more defensively focused. You can do this with certain lineups, especially lineups that incorporate units like Fighting Legend, the Super Vegeta. Strength Super Vegeta is great. Obviously, his ability to crit. Similarly, MUI Goku and the Int Vegeta, fantastic units because of their critting. Int Vegeta probably more so than Goku, just basically because Goku at a certain point his evasion will kick out, which will massively decrease the amount of defense that he is going to have as a unit. He's not going to have poor defense, but it is going to affect him quite significantly. Whereas Vegeta obviously just has that damage reduction that can build up, which means that to a certain point Vegeta will be a lot more defensively viable, especially in the last phase. Obviously we got through the physical phase relatively quickly enough that Vegeta was only immune to attack lowering. This current Vegeta is immune to defense and attack lowering, and he lowers defense with his super, which is quite irritating. You just need to be careful when units lower defense with their supers, especially when you take type disadvantage supers. It can lead to you losing a lot of health, and losing a lot of health is something you can recover back quite quickly if you have a high defensively orientated team, but it's not something you can recover back quite quickly if you do not. You'll probably have to use an item. It's easy for me to recover health because I'm going to have several units that will be over 600, 400k in defense, whereas it's not going to be as easy for people that do not have units that have defenses that high. So you are just going to need to try and manage where you take, if you can, where you place those units, anticipating that if they get supered, especially if it's a type disadvantage one, that it's going to lead to you taking a lot more damage than you would possibly like. And that is something that you just need to be aware of. As you can see though, we're handling everything quite fine. We're not really suffering too much. The AGL LR Gohan is getting a lot of support from the Trunks, and because Trunks is getting his unit super attack, the two of them are stacking defense at a very, very good rate. And that extra amount of defense that Trunks gives Gohan is making him a very, very suitable frontline tank. Once you get through the tech phase, you face no more tech units throughout the rest of the event. So it's actually advisable to bring quite a few AGL units. They don't really suffer type disadvantage attacks, like in any situation, barring this stage. So it's actually quite helpful to have a few more AGL units, just due to the fact that quite early on in the event they can be safe from a type disadvantage point of view. Obviously, preferably, you don't want to do that. You want to bring units that favor facing AGL units. But with the fifth phase being an int phase, it is quite difficult to find tech units that can handle the level of heat that the fifth phase Vegeta can do. He does around 460,000 damage with his super attack, and that's a real problem for tech units. And we'll talk about that later on. But for now, we'll just tackle the strength Vegeta. We got the Dokkan attack, we're not too concerned. We heal perfectly fine. The Dokkan attack will do some decent damage, but realistically speaking, it's just not something we're too concerned about. We're not prioritizing getting it at a certain point or anything like that. If you can get another one later on, obviously preferably in the AGL phase to assist with beating him faster, then great, fantastic. If you can't, then you can't. It is also fine. So yeah, it is something that, at least from my perspective, isn't really something that we're too concerned about. But at the same notion, if you do need to heal and you get the Dokkan attack, that is great, and it is another form of healing. So try and treat your Dokkan attacks as essentially two heals that you'll get during the event, and try and guarantee that you get those heals off and survive the turn. Because if you don't survive the turn, then obviously you don't get the heal, and that's not really something you want to happen. But yeah, so we are taking on the Strength Vegeta at this point. Also kind of just chunking through him, not really too phased about anything, just kind of dishing out some good damage to him. This Gohan, providing some defensive support as well for the rotation, stacking really well. We also have his active skill. We have quite a few active skills in this team. We have AGL Gohan, we have Tech Mystic Gohans, and we also have Tech Trunks. So we have 4 different active skills that we can call upon. Only the AGL Gohans is one that I would consider being highly useful, especially when we're in a dangerous situation. But the Tech Mystic Gohan just doesn't seem necessary. You could use it early on. Once he gets to about 600k defense, you could probably use it, considering he guards against all attacks. So you could definitely possibly transform him, but it does change his link set, which makes him not link so well with the rest of the rotations, which it isn't always great. It's not impossible to get him super attacks, but yeah, it's just the only real benefit is the type effective. And if I'm honest, it's just not something by the time you can transform him, which is probably around phase 4 or 5, it would definitely help you get through 4, 5, and 6 faster. But like I said, at the same time, I just don't know how worth it is, considering you lose the ability to consistently stack all the time in the 7th phase, which is by far the hardest and the one you want to clear the fastest. So it is quite difficult to just say this is exactly when to transform, but I would definitely say that you do need to just consider losing that additional constant increasing damage against the AGL version. But it is entirely up to you, and if you follow this team build, you can utilize that, but just be careful when you utilize any active skill. Try and use it as supplements to items or replacement of items, but generally you want to save them all for the final phase. This Vegeta hits pretty hard. You'll see him hit Trunks here for quite a lot. Vegeta hits for 456, I believe. That'll be multiplied by 1.5 because he hit Trunks, so that brings it up to about 700k, which is why Trunks took quite a lot of damage there with his 300k, and obviously clearly that caused him some issues. So you can see a type disadvantage attack even on a unit with 300 and something thousand defense can still leave you in a bit of a sticky situation. So we'll jump across because we take a while, so we will just jump across to the physical Vegeta now. Just to, there's no point you watching the entire end stage. The stages do get progressively longer, even though we have units that are stacking their attack and are doing 4, 5, or 6 million attack stats. It still just does take a while. Look at Gohan here doing 5 million, pretty impressive. He's doing a full bar without a crit. But it still just takes a while, because even though you can do 5 million or 3 million with 2 out of the 2 out of the 3 units in the turn, it is still quite a lot of damage. This Vegeta, he hits for about 500k. You can see that in how much damage happened to Gohan there. Again, the irritating thing with the int physical and the AGL Vegeta, they all kind of tend to evade attacks from time to time. Don't know why they gave the Vegeta's evasion. I guess sticking with the damage reduction mechanism from the Int SSBE Vegeta would have made the event pretty difficult. If with every attack or super attack you laid out, the unit essentially gained some kind of damage reduction. Would have been, not impossible, but really annoying. So yeah, but as you can see, we're doing decent damage. I mean, we're throwing out as much damage as this team realistically can. We've got Trunks here with 2.3 million attack stats, which is okay. Obviously I could get a couple more dupes in him, and you could link level him, could put some more equipment on him. You could definitely put more equipment on all of the units. You should be putting equipment on units you take into these events. It's just something you should be doing. You shouldn't really not be placing gear on units, especially if you want to complete the challenges. Rather use the gear, utilize it, just let them perform better. Even if you are just sticking health equipment, even if you don't want to just stick proper equipment on them, if you just want to stick health equipment, do that, because it will assist you. That extra health will help out eventually. Like an extra 500 health on every single unit, I believe is obviously 3k. I think it amounts to something like something like an extra 12 or 15,000 health, which maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean it's still really does help to a certain extent. So yeah, I definitely would say you want to put gear on all the units if you are looking at making your life a little bit easier. But it's completely up to you. I know a lot of people don't like wasting the gear, or wasting in inverted commas. So yeah, it is just something that it's going to be determined player by player. There's no go-to build, but having crit does help with dealing damage, especially since you're going to have so many different changing types throughout the stage event. And yeah, we're just going to jump across. Now that we've kind of finished with the physical unit, we're going to jump across to the AGL. I use an item when first taking on the AGL. You do, if your units have below 300k with no damage reduction abilities, you're going to have to utilize an item just to prevent them from taking. They'll take about 408,000 damage on a super attack if they have 232 or so defense. So he does about 650 in the form of his super attack damage, which is obviously really high and isn't something to laugh at. So from that perspective, I would definitely say that I'd strongly advise that if your units are below the threshold, if they aren't hitting those kind of peaks in terms of defense, then yeah, consider just using an item, a Whis or something, and just obviously give them that extra bit of defense. If they are managing to have higher than 300k defense, then generally speaking, without type disadvantage, you should be okay. If you are at full health, you shouldn't die. Vegeta does lower defense on his super, so you do need to be careful with that. Like once he supers a unit, he will lower their defense quite substantially. So I do definitely suggest that you just keep that in mind when you are facing him. You don't want to end up having a unit that's on the cusp taking a super and then having their defense lowered, and then you are caught unawares, and it's just gonna be a huge problem for you, which isn't exactly the best thing in the world. So I would definitely suggest that. You'll see I took no damage there. That's because I have a damage reduction item active, and also they have I think Trunks at that point has 500k defense or something like that. So there are thresholds. I mean, the team eventually, at least in my situation, does outscale the event, and you just are kind of going through the motions, trying to finish the event as quickly as possible, rather than trying to focus on anything with the event. So yeah, that is generally what happens if you bring high stacking teams or teams with good stats that stack quite quickly. You end up being quite safe in terms of the final phase. It's more just going through the motions, setting the rotations, not making silly mistakes, and then it's quite easy to complete the event from there. Trunks transforming, a bit unfortunate that we didn't get a nice placement of orbs, but 6 orbs is still decent. Not gonna get huge damage out of him, unfortunately, because Vegeta is going to evade his attack, which does happen from time to time. The Gohan, the Mystic Gohan, is just doing enough damage realistically anyway. I mean, if he got an additional there or a crit, we basically would have been done. So yeah, it is pretty straightforward. We do actually get the hit with Trunks, and we get the crit, I believe. So decent damage, nothing too crazy, and Vegeta is pretty much left in a situation where we're going to win. There's nothing really at this point that I would say is going to prevent us from winning. So yeah, that is the legendary Vegeta event. So pretty straightforward event. Like I said, nothing too crazy, nothing too difficult. Well, it is difficult. I shouldn't say nothing too difficult. It is difficult, but with the right team build, these long form events do just end up being more like just pressing buttons and watching TV rather than like an actual focused kind of fight. We will take on the category challenges. I believe those can be somewhat interesting, and a lot of them will require differing team builds that we can't really just utilize like stacking teams or things like that, or maybe in some situations we can, but yeah, realistically some alternative team builds. That's gonna be it from me. Let me know what you guys think about the event. Have you tried it? How hard is it for you? What team did you use? Did you complete any of the challenges? And if you enjoyed the video, of course, I would really appreciate it if you could leave a like. But other than that, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. But before we go, let's just obviously collect our rewards. A couple missions here, nothing too crazy. Obviously the category challenges from before, but you will get 14 stones and 14 tickets if you complete all of the missions or just complete the event once. So well worth it. That's gonna be it for me. Hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, stay safe and bye.